And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? How's everything, Izzy? How you feeling?
Hi, good. You, Mike? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good, man. Well, just to let everybody know, I'm on one part of Pearls of Wisdom today, and it's appropriate because she exemplifies kind of what I'm going to be talking about. And she's a mom. She's a mom's mom when it comes to her kids. She's an alpha female. She takes care of them. She handles her business, right? Well, at the same time, if you know her on social media, she has a life, and you could tell she has an enjoyment of life, and she really celebrates life and has friends and makes sure she takes care of that side of her. So I thought it was real cool to have a conversation with her about and ask the question: how do you keep that balance between the woman in you and making sure that you're happy in your life, right? And at the same time, making sure that you're there and you're the mother that you are. I'm fascinated by it. I once talked to somebody and they said that when an airplane's falling out of the sky and the oxygen comes down, they asked, who do you think you put the oxygen on first? And I was like, I'm not sure. I guess your kids, right? They're like, no, you put it on
Yes.
yourself first because if you pass out, there's no way to help your kids, right?
Correct.
And they used that to explain why they felt it was important to be the woman, right? To be in touch with the woman that they are, while at the same time being a mom. But they're like, if I'm not the best me and I'm not happy, there's no way I can take care of my kids, or they'll never get the best of me. But it's different me being a man talking about it and listening to somebody who actually lives it. So I'm curious to know, like, and like I said, just because I said that, don't pull any punches. Maybe you don't have that view. Maybe it's completely your own view. But I'm really interested in what you have to say.
Well, being a mom at the beginning was hard. I mean, I had obviously the kid's father, he was around, and it was beautiful. But then we had our differences. He stepped out of the relationship for a while, and it was by myself. So that's when you really learn how to balance. There was times that I had my kids and I didn't even know what to do. I was crying with them, but they were so baby. So then me and my kid's father were back and forth for a long time, so it was unbalanced. And that's when
Mhm.
I think you become a little stronger. You start learning like who's more important, you understand? So in that you have to throw everything aside and raise your kids the best way you can. And then I told him, choose, you want to come back, you don't, that's on you. So back and forth, depression up and down because it's not easy. You have a full-time job, you're a mother of two with an animal, you know. So you try to balance the
Mhm.
best you can and you still want to have a social life, but it's hard. So I guess it got to a point that you kind of just put your priorities. As long as you have your kids the right way, you know what I mean, the best that you can, you learn. And the older they get, it becomes a little bit easier. I don't like they say the older they get, the problems get bigger.
Yeah.
Sometimes. However, if you try to talk to them and be like they're like I don't treat my kids the way people, oh, they're children, they shouldn't know about certain things. No, I treat my kids the way I talk to you, the way I talk to anybody in the street, because you know what? It's a different era. They need to learn it. They're learning it on social media. So now my kids are 7 and 9. So
Mhm.
balancing is a little easier because I tell them I'm going out. But I have two fathers now because they're like, where are you going? Who are you going with? You know what I mean? It's a little, you balance
Mhm.
it, but you're like, oh, I'll take you to a jumpy house. I'll do this with you this day, but this is mommy time. So, you have to balance that
So
part.
it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the more disciplined you were early, like the more structure you were able to establish early, made your life a little easier later. Because
Yeah.
what I find is that women that don't have that structure with their kids early, they kind of continue in that cycle of not being able to balance because it continues to be a problem. So I see one of the keys, if anybody's taking notes out there, is start with a structure
Communicate.
early so that later on it becomes a little easier to handle the situation. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. So let me ask you a question, right? How do you handle because we always talk about, like, when we talk about this subject, people like to talk about moms going out and enjoying themselves and having fun, right? But there's a lot to being a woman. You know what I mean? So I'm going to ask you a little deeper question. How do you handle it when you don't feel like yourself? When you're for lack of a better word, depressed, or when you're down and out, how do you
That's
still,
the
because you
thing.
still got to be a mother.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like me, I've had my mother's help since day one, so that's a leisure. But my mother was the type of woman. She's very old school, and she's like, "Oh, para ir a janguear. No, I'm not taking care of your kids. I didn't tell you to pop 2 kids." My mom's very old school,
Right.
so it got to a point, like I said, once they're older, it becomes a little bit easier in that aspect to go out and have a life as a mother, you know. But at the beginning, I couldn't do that. That was
What
impossible.
about, like I was asking, what about when you're feeling down? Like, so
When
like
you
I
feel
said, okay,
depressed,
so
you need
you,
to go out. You need to go out.
is that what it is? Is that what it is? You kind of have to find the
Either it
time.
is to go to a spa. Sometimes when you go out with friends, it's not the best thing. And I'm being honest because I have mad friends and I'm in the bike life, and it's you have to be out there. Like I said, they're older, so I'm able to experience that. But at the beginning, when you're depressed, the best thing is not to be around that many people either, because they could bring you down, and you could you could get shut down, and then you're not gonna be there to take care of your kids. You're not gonna be able. You're not gonna be able to do anything. You know what I mean? So you have to learn. That's something I did hit rock bottom. When I'm telling you, I was crying and it was hard. Going out wasn't the key either. You
See, the
understand?
thing is, you're not alone. You're not alone. I love that we were able to go into this part of it, right? Because when you watch TV or you watch talk shows, and or you even watch social media, people love to talk about the single mother, and when she's finding herself, she's out having fun or she's on dates, right? Nobody ever says, and I had to learn this as an adult. As an adult, when I started to look at my mother and I started to say to myself, oh man, I know she did a good job, because it wasn't until now that I realized she was a woman first.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So all these years, 40 something years of my life, I only knew her as mom. That's my mom. And then one day I saw her and I was like, oh my God, she's a woman first. So, and she had 4 kids. So I always felt like any heartbreak I've ever felt, multiply it times 4. Any
Yeah.
money stress I've ever been in, multiply it times 4. Any kind of depression, sadness, whatever I've ever been in, multiply it times 4, because she had 4 kids. So she couldn't afford to
To be
not to
depressed.
be down. It's
Yeah,
like I
even
told
if
me
you're
that said,
depressed, it takes you like a little second to get back up. As like
yeah, it's
you
I
have
get
no
5 seconds.
choice.
You got 5 seconds to cry, and then after that, you got to be gangster.
That's why.
You know what I
That's
mean?
why I know women that say, "Oh, I have postpartum depression." I know it exists because I have friends that have gone through it, but I never had a chance to stay stuck on it. You understand what I mean? I had no choice. I had to keep going. Just looking at them and me being depressed, what is that gonna do for them? Nothing. It's like you have to swallow it up and just keep going. And like life throws you. What is it? What is that saying that life throws you? Como es? Like it throws you shit, and then if
Curveballs.
you
I
know
don't know.
how to, yeah, it throws you anything. You have to learn how to like escape with anything.
I think a lot of women are going to understand what you were trying to say with that statement about that you didn't have the choice. It's
No,
like,
no.
yeah, like there's some people that don't get me wrong. There's some people that can't control it. It affects them, consumes
Yeah,
them. Yes.
some women would rather leave their kids. Honestly, I have friends like that. They leave their kids with their mom, and they rather go party because that's they're getting out of the depression. Okay, so who's raising the kid? Your grandmother or you? You understand? And then the kids
Right.
grow up to loving their grandmother as their mother. I didn't
So
have a
there's a
choice. That my
fine
mom
line.
didn't allow me to do that. It's
So
like,
there's a
good.
fine line between, again, so there's a fine line between the woman in you and the mother in you. So like there comes a point where, yeah, you have to put yourself and you got to put your oxygen on yourself. But then there comes a point where there's a line you can't cross. Like once you cross over that line, now you're being selfish, or now you're being overly committed to what you need as opposed to what your kids
Yeah,
need.
yeah,
You know what
and
I
that's
mean?
the thing. I don't know. So, like I said, some mothers don't care about that. They have kids young and they're out and about. As soon as they pop, they just leave the kids with anybody. My kids have not really ever slept anywhere out of the house. You understand? So
Yes.
it depends on the person. Because I'm not saying I'm perfect. I have other faults. Like I curse around my kids, but they can't curse. You understand what I mean? Like I'll put a bar of soap in their mouth real quick. You understand?
Yeah.
Because that's the way I was raised. But at the same time, like if my mom sees that I'm depressed because she could see right through me, she'll be like, Iha, you need a day? And I'm like, Mom, please. And she'll give me that day. But
Back
now
and
that my
forth.
kids are older, I'm able to say, hey, I'm going to go out. you know. And like I said, I live in a 2 family, so it's just like we're one. So when I do go out, I tell my mom, hey, I'm going out, I'll be back at this time. It's different, you know. We have an understanding with my kids, and if they behave good, they get premios,
Rewarded.
you understand, you get
So,
rewarded.
so if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that a support system, that your
It's very
support system allows
important.
is
Even if
very
you feel
important.
alone, you always have somebody. Either it's your sister. I don't have sisters. I have a brother, but it's like he's not around. And then aunts and uncles, I barely have. So it's myself and my mother. And now that my kid's father's back in our life, that's it. But you know, it's not to say that you know the relationship that I've had with him is on and off, on and off. You know, we're older now, so hopefully we will both wisened up, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But if we haven't and he decides to walk away tomorrow, I'm still gonna keep being a mom, and I'm
Still
still
got to
gonna
do
have to
what you
have a
got to do.
social life, you know? And the same way with him, you know, I don't wish him bad, but it is what it is. Like you
Have
have
you
to keep
felt?
going. And Mhm.
Have you felt the effect? Like, what's one of the major differences of having him? So, like, you know what it's like to be a single mother, be by yourself with the kids, right, and have to deal with it alone. Is there something, an advantage in your eyes to having another body there, another person?
No, it's just
No,
another child along, to be honest with
there's
you.
another
The
child
only
along.
good thing
Okay,
is like, and I tell him in his face too all the time, I love that he's back in the house, and you know the kids have a father figure because it's very important. I have 2 boys, so they
right.
need a like listening to me is different than having a man like structure. The kids need a father.
Okay,
I
so
don't
be
care what
careful because you're
anybody
hitting
says.
on some positives.
Huh?
You're hitting on some positives right there.
Yeah, a kid. I
Okay,
don't care what any mother says. A kid, especially a boy, needs their father. Any kid needs their father. I grew up with my dad, you know, and I know what it feels like. So I didn't want to deprive my kids from that. It's very hard when you grow up with just a single parent, you know, because you have to teach them both sides. You understand?
I watched this.
Mm-hmm.
I watched this documentary one time, right, and they were talking about lions, right, and bear with me, I'll get to a point here. Uh, they were talking about lions, and there was a young lion, like an adolescent lion, right, coming up, and he was kind of coming into his body. He was getting big, and one of the lead lion, the alpha male lion, right, the leader of
Mm-hmm.
the pride, he had gone out and he had gotten attacked and he died. Okay, he got killed, and it left nobody there to check the adolescent lion. So what he started to do, he started to feel himself, and he started biting, snipping at, and trying to kill cubs that weren't his, and chopping out the mom, and all kinds of stuff. Right
Wow.
now, he was acting like the male lion, like he was the badass. But you know what? He didn't know how to do.
Wow.
He didn't have history on his side, so he didn't know how to get the water. He didn't know where the animals graze to. There's a lot of stuff that he didn't know, right? And I kind of related to humans, and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of went through that. You know what I mean? You start to come into your body as a grown man, right? You start to go through puberty, you start to become a grown man, and if there's no male lion there, right, you kind of lack guidance. You don't really know where you're going. You don't know where to look for the food, basically, which
Right.
is in other words of saying you don't have that example in front of your face how to be a man. All right. But here's what happens. If there is a male lion around, okay, if there is a male lion, when that adolescent lion gets to a certain age and he starts to get snippy, that male lion, the alpha male, snips at him, whap, and gives him a bite. And you know what he does? He backs off and he takes his proper position to sit back and learn and watch until he's old enough to get his own pride. Right?
Correct. I've already
Same
experienced
thing that
that.
happens in humans. Your boy puffs his chest. It's good to have that male to be like, yo, take it easy, slow down, bro.
Yeah.
Don't disrespect your mother. If you go on
And
TikTok right now, there's this whole thing about where the kids will be like, shut up, mom, or whatever, whatever. And you see the
just
father like spaz out, right? And normally it's but when you really take a dip into what that's about, you're like, oh, yo, that's pretty dope, man.
But
Like I get what they're
you know
trying to
what's
say.
different? I'm gonna pause you right there because I just went through exactly what you went through, like what you just said. And the thing with my kids is that they're used to like I said, he wasn't around for a couple of years. So they're used to it just being us three. So he's when he came back, it was hard for him to correct his kids. They're his children, but he can't correct them because they're like, oh, we don't need to listen to you. That attitude comes in. You understand? So my kids are not the easiest person to deal with, but it's like I
Right.
tell them, you got to work with them. It's hard. So
Yeah.
now it's a process. You weren't around, but now you're proving yourself, and they have to respect you. But at the same time, I have to let go. You understand me? Being that I played the role of mom and dad for so long, having somebody else, like it hurts me, but I have to give him his spot. You understand? That's his throne. I can't take that away from him.
Right.
So
Wow.
when
Yeah.
I leave, I say I'll be right back. That's my escape of being my fun time. But at the same time, wherever I go, I'm like, oh my god, are they okay? Oh my god, because it's something new to both of them. I mean,
Right.
to
Right.
the kids and the father.
You're hitting on
But
another challenge. I see. I talk to a lot of women, right? That even so you're talking about reintroducing their father,
yeah,
right? You're talking about reintroducing their father. So we could even lead into imagine dating and trying to reintroduce a man, like a stranger, like a guy that's not their father. You know, what I
oh, they
found is
couldn't.
that
My
a
kids
lot
never
of
accepted that. I tried with a friend. It was just a friend,
yeah,
and my kids were like, nope, nope. They weren't taking it.
yeah,
So
it's
they're the same.
see that's a good question that we could lead into. Like at what point, right? See, that's one of those situations where at that point, do you take what they say as the law?
You have
Like,
to. You have to respect what your kids say because you know what? Kids have some type of feeling that they feel something. You understand? Like it could be jealousy, but you have to work on that. With me, it wasn't jealousy. It's just they didn't want anybody. Like whoever I would bring in, even if it was just friendship, they wouldn't allow it. It was like, no, mom, I'm telling dad. I'm like, okay, that's another subject. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
it's just the father he moved on. You know, it's different.
yeah,
So they wouldn't allow, they were too little. That's what I'm saying. Through the childhood, like when they're young, it's hard. But once you
yeah,
get older and you have that communication that you could be like, Bobby, you don't want mommy to be happy. Like even if I wasn't back with my kid's father, mommy, you don't want mommy to be happy. You don't want to see her smile. You don't want, you know what I mean? That's the conversation that will go.
I think that you just nailed it. Okay, so you just said something that's so poignant that I absolutely love. Okay, so we grew up in an era where it was you were seen and not heard.
Yeah.
So kids rarely had an opinion on what happened in the house. And
Right.
you just had to shut up and swallow. If you were moving out of town to California, if you were there was a
Yep.
divorce happening, you didn't have a say, you didn't say anything. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, mommy like women, you weren't allowed to talk,
No.
right?
Yep.
I think that one of the things that we learned is as a generation is that we learned is there's a conversation that needs to be had, right? And I think people confuse the conversation with asking for permission. Okay. You don't have to ask your kids for permission for anything.
No.
You've earned the right as a good mother to be happy. Okay. So you don't have to ask them for permission, but they do deserve a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out of respect.
Here's something that I used to do, right? I've dated a lot of women with children in my life, a lot, right? And in the beginning, you always would meet that one little 12-year-old, that one little 9-year-old, that when he wasn't looking, or mom wasn't looking, would try to kick you in your ass. Like, boom,
Yep.
would do something disrespectful as hell. You'd be like, yo, what the? But as you mature, because a lot of it has to do with the adult maturing, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you grow, you start to understand what the dynamic is, right? One of the things I used to run into a lot was I'll give you one example. Um, when I would meet single moms, okay, and we'd start dating, and they got to the point where let's say they wanted me to stay the night or hang out or whatever. And what I would find is that their son used to sleep in the bed with them a couple nights a week. And I'm like, what? Whatever, cool. And they would say, yeah, he loves sleeping with me. He loves sleeping with me. And in reality, was it really about him loving them, loving sleep, or were you the one that was kind of like crutching, right? But well, that's a different story.
It could be both.
Yeah, it
It
could be
could be
both.
both.
Exactly, it could be both. So what I would find is, initially when I didn't do it, let's say at the kitchen table, right? I would come to have dinner with them.
Mm-hmm.
I would find that she would give me this chair at the center, at the head of the table. Oh, sit here, because it looks nice. You sit right here. You're the biggest male here. You sit at the edge of the table,
Mm-hmm.
not telling me that that's been the chair her son sat at for the last 2 or 3 years, right?
Oh
Well,
no.
essentially, he was the king. All of a sudden, I'm taking him out, and now I'm the new king, right? And now
Yep.
he's looking at me sideways, pissed off and mad, and she's wondering why, right? Well, no, that's of course I'd be pissed off.
I just
You
went
mean
through
to
that.
tell me now all of a sudden like that's not my seat anymore? What happened to me? What about me? Same thing with the bed. I'll stay over, and mom is like, "Oh, you can't sleep here tonight because my staying." And he's like, "Wait, what?" Now he's associating me with the reason he cannot be in the bed. So of course he hates me. Of course he resents me.
Of course, that's
So what
two
I like to
hormones.
do, right, what I like to do is I like to have a conversation and say, hey, how about we listen, we're moving in this direction, especially with the bed. Why don't you start having your son sleep in his own bed now? Like just kind of like early. So that by the time I'm in that bed, he doesn't associate with me. It already started happening. So he's not saying that I'm the reason, right?
Yeah.
The second part of that is that somebody coming from the outside. The one thing I always like loathed and always kind of like, oh, drove me crazy was when I dealt with a single mother and she kind of was at her wit's end and she kind of wanted me to play disciplinarian. And I'm like, whoa, no, that's not, no. Slow your roll, man.
My
What are you
kids would be
doing?
like, "Who are you talking to?" Real quick.
Listen, you're not, trust me, they're not the only ones. They're not the only ones. That's a perfectly natural reaction. This stranger, who are you? So I learned, I was like, okay, no. I slow people down. Now, no, that's not my job. My only job, right? When I'm the boyfriend or when I'm the guy that's coming into the life, my only job is to model good behavior. My job is that they look at me,
Just be
right,
their friend
and say,
for a time.
that's how a man is supposed to treat my mother.
Right.
That's the only thing they're supposed to get. Okay. If they get that, they got it all because that's what they're supposed to watch out for. They're supposed to look and say, Mike, that's the way a man is supposed to treat my mother and watch you. And I learned that from, obviously experience, but I watched my mom and my stepdad. Okay.
Yeah.
My mom and my stepdad, he's a great guy. He'll do whatever for us, obviously, right? But when it comes down to it, he's all about her and making sure that she's good and taking care of her. And that's all he cares about. She's good, I'm good, right? And I used to be like, damn, like, come on, show some love. Like, what's up? And I took a step back and I was like, I respect him. Before liking him, I had to respect him.
Right.
Okay. And what he did was he earned my respect by the way he treated my mother day in and day out. All right. And like you said, yes, some kids and some men, whatever it is, they get that intuition. Oh, this is not a good person, man. I don't like them. I don't like
my kid's father. He had to experience it with his own kids. That's even worse. You understand? Because when he came back, my father had passed away, so my dad was the king of the house when my kid's father walked away. And then my oldest is only 9, and I used to tell him, "You're the king of the castle. You have to take care of Abuelita, me, and your brother." So he had that image in his head. I'm the king. So he got that. Ese orgullo. Now the father comes back into the place. Who do you think is the king? According, to the rules, it's him. And my son wasn't accepting that. He's like, wait a minute, you told me I was the king of the house. Who is he to come with his own father? Like what you said. So I told him, you gotta do baby steps with him. It's not gonna be easy. He has your exact temper. So you're dealing with your twin right now. So it's been a battle, but it's baby steps. Now when I tell him, I go, you want your father to leave? Like it gets to a point because they argue so much. It's crazy. I'm like, you want him to leave? He backs out.
Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Do you ever step back and say, yo, their relationship is going to be their relationship? Let me just.
Oh yes, all the time. Oh, you
fall back and kind of just
deal with it. Turn.
Yeah, deal with it, handle it, right?
But I always tell him, I go, don't do something you don't want done to you. Remember, he's at an age right now that he'll take it offensive and he'll hold a grudge. You have to talk to him. And that's the problem with both of them. They don't know how to talk. They're the same character. And they have that temper like, oh, yo soy like Dominicans say matatán or whatever, Cubans say, they both have that same thing. So I tell them, treat him how you want to be respected. If you say, I want to talk to you, and he's learned, it's a process for both of them. So he'll sit there. He's like, come here. And he's like, I don't want to sit down. Like my little one. I mean, the big one, the 9-year-old. Mm-hmm. I don't need to sit down. What do you want to tell me? But there's one rule in my house. No disrespect. Don't, no cursing. That's me. I'll jump in there. So now it's a little different. Like they learn how to balance each other, I guess. And it's a work in progress.
The one piece of advice I can give you is this is a natural period of time.
Yeah.
This is a natural period of time where they're basically it's like this. it's like they're pushing to see if he really means it, that he's going to stay.
Yep.
They're going to push his button. They're going to push, and say, well, oh, you're going to love me? Well, you're going to prove it. Oh, you really love me? Well, let's see if you really love me.
The battle is that my mom will protect him, and he knows it. The 9-year-old, oh, nobody could touch him. So whatever the father says, he'll run down and say, Abuelita, Daddy did this, and my mom's ready to flip out on anybody.
Okay, so my question is to you: have you set that boundary and kind of given him his?
Oh, I have recently. I just said, you know what? That's the father. I know you might not agree with the way he takes action, but he's the father. You have to give him that. And
yeah, it's one of those situations where she's another person that we almost take for granted their position, and we don't have that conversation with them as well. Where we're gonna welcome Yasi in. Hey, what's going on, Yasi? How are you?
Yasi!
How are you?
We're in knee deep in a conversation about being a single mother and balancing being happy, right, and seeking your own happiness, while at the same time being a mother full time and not having the luxury of being able to walk away, having the luxury of just kind of being able to thing. You kind of have to be a mother 24/7. So like if you don't feed her, she don't get fed. As opposed to like if you're a dad and you're in the house or you're around, I'll just drop her off at mom. I'm gonna take care of it. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Right.
So I have a question. And we're gonna go back into what me and Izzy were talking about, but let's go down this route. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the balancing act that you guys have to do, that you guys have to find yourself in when it comes to whether it's being a mom and, like I said, chasing your own happiness? Is there a conversation that you have to have with your daughter? Is there, what is it?
I definitely think so. There are conversations that I think that you and having along the way as they're growing, so that there's understanding. I mean, in my situation, you know, it's always been all about her. So and it's kind of just been understood. Like if vacations, you know, being spent with my friends, or just, you know, with others, then it's like, it's understood because it's always been that way since she was born. So I've never gotten anything like, you know, where, you know, don't go, or, you know, why are you going? And the balance in that comes because I take time to do that, but then I take time to vacation with her as well and do things with her as well. So I really try to keep it, and I've always tried actually to keep it very 50-50. So even now, like, you know, in a relationship, same thing. It's the whole balancing, right? Like I'm with her generally. It's flexible.
So is it something you do consciously where you're like Izzy said, that if she's gonna do this, she makes sure that she takes them to the bouncy house and kind of spends quality time with them? Is this something that you do intentionally where you're like, okay, I want to go out Saturday night, so let me make sure that Friday night or Thursday night we have girls' night or whatever, you know, however you would do it? Is that something you do intentionally?
I think it just kind of comes naturally because, again, you know, in my situation, again, it's just her and I. So it's not necessarily like, you know, like I've spent all this, like I spent all this other time, like away from her. So she generally, you know, she really gets the solid Monday through Friday, even though it's like hustle and bustle or whatever, it's the two of us. So I do, though, try to make sure, like, for instance, if I leave on a Friday for the weekend, then it's, you know, I just make sure that maybe I take her to get something to eat where she wants. Not, you know, like I'm like, where do you want to? Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like where do you want to eat, pick up food or whatever. And then when I come back, I feel actually it's more like when I come back, that I feel more obligated to spend the time as opposed to
Yeah.
like prior. So I think prior, it's like it's built up and it's needed. So even like I
Right.
feel for her, like even at this age, she probably like sees it. And even with work, you know, she's probably like, all right,
My mom
she's
needs a
gonna
break.
stress
Mom's stressed
out.
out.
She needs her time, which again, for the both of us, because I try to, you know, consider her too, like she needs her own time too, like especially like now in teenage years. So yeah, so then, you know, so when I come back, then it's like, okay, well, we could pick up dinner here, like, you know, we'll have dinner together. But again, it's always
But I
like
have
that.
a question. It's easier now that she's older, right? Because that's the point that I said to him. Like when they're little, you have to be there. Like there is no motherly time. Like it's all about them. And then when
So
it gets to an
I
age,
have I have been, I mean, very, very, very fortunate that my parents are nearby, right? I mean, same as you know, your mom is there, but I have my mom. So, and that connection has been there. So it's not like, oh, I gotta go like to mama's house, like whatever. Like, no, my parents, they want it for me too. So they're like, you need to, you know, you need to take this time, go revamp, whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? Like you need to detach. It cannot be just all you and her, because then that's not like so healthy either. But it, I mean, so like in the sense of easiness, I guess it's gotten easier because like I know like my very, very, very first trip like away, I was like sobbing like on the plane. Like I was like, oh my God, like I'm leaving her, you know what I mean? And I think she was like, even it was a year old, you know what I mean? But I needed it. I needed it. I was like, you know, when you're going through it with everything in life that, you know, you're being hit with, sometimes you just stay in that cycle. Like that's kind of norm. And then you just work through those stressors. And sometimes you don't even know that the stress is hitting you as hard as it actually is, until you actually get away and you clear your mind and you know you like kind of regain sanity. So I think yes, it has gotten easier because it's already the understanding of like, for instance, you know, she was like for New Year's, you know, she was like, oh, do you have plans? Are you gonna go away? Like, are you gonna do anything? You know, so that like
becomes your best friend.
yeah, like so like my birthday, right? Like it's in 2 days. So you know, she's like, oh, do you have plans for your birthday? Are you gonna go away? Like even my mom knows, like she's like, all right, did you plan your trip for this month or like are you going next month? Because
Yeah,
I
you
know
have a communication with them.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm
It's
right.
January or February. You know what I mean?
Easier.
So
That's a question I want to ask. What do you call it?
yeah.
What does that conversation sound like? It sounds like both of you at some point have had your version of a conversation with your child to kind of let them know, like, look, mommy needs this time. You know what I'm saying? She needs her sanity. You know, what does that conversation sound like at a 13 or 10? Like, what do you tell them? Is it clear as day? Hey, listen, if I don't do this, I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna beat your ass. Or
Exactly.
is it more like,
Exactly. That's what
baby
I said
talk,
for
like,
my
well,
7 and my
I
9-year-old.
kind of,
I said, listen,
like, I
you're
would like to
driving
know
me
what that sounds like.
crazy. No, I talk to them the way I'm talking to you guys, and everybody tells me that I'm wrong, but that's the way we have our communication. Everybody has their own way. Like, you know, I curse in front, like I said before, I curse in front of my kids, but they won't curse. You understand? They have that line of respect, and I tell them you can never pass that. But when I tell them, you're driving me insane, mommy needs mommy time. Mommy's gonna go out with the girls, so mommy's gonna go spend time with daddy. We need our time. And they're like, but that's not fair. We didn't go out all week. It's coronavirus. That's my little thing, ready? It's coronavirus. You can't go out. So then they're like, that's not fair. So I feel bad as a mommy. Then the motherhood like figure comes in. All right, Bobby, I'll take you to the bouncy house. Where do you want to go? I ask them. Like, that's that communication. Bobby, what do you want to do? You want to go to dinner? You want to go? Because they like going to rumbas. They're spoiled like that. They want to, like, you know, they want to do certain things that they like, you know? And I'm like, okay, Bobby, what do you want to do? We'll do that this time. Or they like, now my 9-year-old has a little crush on a girl. So he wants to go wherever she goes. And I'm like, okay, we're starting that already. So I work with him, you know, and then I grab, and it's funny because it's part of my crew that I ride with. So it's their daughters, they have kids, you know what I mean? So we'll do kiddie events and they have a blast all the time. And then we do our events. You understand?
You
So
kind of
it's like,
incorporate
okay,
them. Yeah, so you incorporate them. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I did
I find that Go
I
ahead.
mean, again, for me, it was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to go because, it's mommy time. For me, it's always been like, it's mommy time. I think for me, it became more difficult when, when I started dating and when when it fell into like a relationship. So that was hard because there was no talking, and from me sharing, with others, there was a lot of like, what, you I went 12 years not dating, not seeing anybody, not bringing anybody home, not staying out with anybody. You know what I mean?
Right,
So it was only like, oh, me and the girls. And so me and the girls were only like every couple months or something like that. Right. And
right.
it was then with the girls, she was also coming along too. So like, so that balanced out that way. But when it came to that dating piece, like that conversation did need to happen. And that was you know what, when you get older, because
You'll
there was
understand.
a silent treatment. I got the silent treatment and I was like, this is not how we do things. We talk and we need to air things out because it's not healthy for you and it's not healthy for me, right? Because then that's like an added stressor, right? So the conversation was pretty much, I'm seeing this person, right? And I would not bring this person around you if I didn't feel that this person was going to disrespect you, going to harm you, anything of that sort, right? But then there was also the understanding of, as you get older, you are going to want to go out with your friends, right? And you eventually will have a boyfriend or you will date or whatever, right? And so I said, and so what do you think that it would be like for me when you are out? I said, do you think that it's fair for me after so much time to then just continue to be alone? You know,
I've had that
Seen
conversation
that
with my
happen.
kids.
right,
I've
That's
had that.
something that I've seen happen a lot. Where a
Mhm.
woman, she dove into being a mother, completely neglected the fact that she was a woman as well. Just
Yeah.
dove in. I'm a mom, 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 mom. Kid
Right,
hits about 15, 16. He doesn't want to mess with you like that. He wants to be out or whatever, whatever. Or better yet, how about this one? I'll put it on to me, on myself. Um, I'm a grown ass man with a beautiful mom, right? If I spend, if I see, I don't live far from my mother at all. And
hmm,
if I see her twice a week, where I spend significant time with her twice a week, I think to myself, imagine she didn't have her husband. She'd be in that house by herself.
Yep.
What, 4 days, 5 days a week? Maybe,
exactly.
luckily there's four of us that we rotate in and out.
Right,
But either way, even at the max, you know what I'm saying? She'd still be a majority of the time by herself.
yeah,
And you look back and thank God I'm seeing a shift where times have changed, where people are, well, before you came on, I gave the analogy of I had spoken to somebody and they said that when an airplane's ready to crash and the oxygen comes down, they're like, who do you put the oxygen on first? Do you put it on your children or do you put it on yourself? And the thing is, if you put it on your children and you pass out, there's nobody there to help them, nobody there
yeah,
to take care of them. Whereas if you put it on yourself, now you could help them with the mask, you could do all that. And the whole analogy says it speaks to the fact that only the best version of you, right? What's best for the children is the best version of you. The happiest you, the
right,
most well-rounded you, that is what's best for your children. And at some point, they're gonna develop their own life, right? And if you didn't concentrate on the woman in yourself, you will lead a life of solitude. You will be by yourself.
right,
You know what I'm saying? Or
right,
it'll take a lot longer to kind of reacclimate yourself to whether it's
right,
dating or just the social life.
right. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
my situation is a little different because at the same time that my kid's father left the picture for a while, my dad passed away. So I had to play the role of different people. I
So
had to be a daughter, a husband, a grandfather, a father, and a mother. And I had no uncles and aunts around at that time. So it became a little
right,
harder on me. So when I literally broke down, and that's what I'm telling you, that I had no time for that. They call it postpartum depression, whatever the fuck they call it, or depression, just period. I had to suck my depression in. I couldn't. My mom was going through shit. My kids didn't have their father. I was alone. I had to suck everything in like a fucking hurricane, and I did. And I think, thank God, because of the way that I am, was that I was able to like deal with it. But it got to a point that I would fucking grab that pillow and cry my ass off and be like, God, what the fuck did I do to you? Like,
So
it gets to a point that you break down. You do, you're human.
so what you're saying
So,
is, just to clarify, because you're not saying that you're not allowed to be depressed. What you're saying is you really had to pick and choose your
yeah.
moment. You couldn't just be like, oh, I feel like
Oh,
shit.
I'm depressed.
I'm
No,
trying
there
to
is
cry
no
it out.
me anymore. There is no me. You have to look at everything else. Like, in that thing, you suck it up. Like, you really do. And
Your
with my
breaking
mom,
points, your breaking points of of
those traumas.
your release, let me just say, right? It has to be behind closed doors.
Yep. And nobody needs to know about it.
And because you don't want to stress your children out or worry them,
And they
right?
see right through you.
And see, right? So even if there's a rough patch somewhere, right? You have to maintain no matter what, because they're there in the house with you, and
Yep.
they can tell, and
Yeah.
they can tell when
Sometimes
I'd
my
it's
say
kid, he sees me and I can't hold my tears. I've been through so much, and they'll see my tear and they're like, Mom, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, Bobby. And then they'll go and they'll wipe my tear and they're like, Mom, and they'll give me a hug, because in my house there's one rule: hugs are like a priority for everything. Like, if you see somebody,
right,
you need to hug them. Like, hugs are amazing. Like, people don't understand that. That's another subject, but so in my household, when they see me like that, they'll just come and hug me. They don't want to ask me anything anymore, especially my kids. They'll be like,
that,
Mom, you
like,
okay?
saying,
Hmm?
the saying that they, like, you generally have to put up this front, and people see you, your exterior, like you're like you're and you're put together, and even if they ask you, oh, is everything okay, and things
You
are
have to
okay,
say
and you
good,
just
yeah.
yes.
really have
Great.
you have to
And then your
say,
tears come
yeah,
out.
it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Like,
I
or if
say
not, like, yeah, but I'll get through it. Like, it's all right. It's nothing for you to worry about.
Yep.
I say the most gangster shit my mom ever did. I'm telling you, the most gang. Now, don't get me wrong. As a child, as growing up, we knew something wasn't. There was something there. We knew she had her ways about her. We know there was days where she had better days than others. Like, there was something there. But the most gangster shit my mother ever did was I didn't recognize, and I said this earlier, I didn't recognize that my mom was a woman as well until I became much, much older. Like,
Mhm.
all this time when I started going through it, I just looked at it as my mom is going through it. My mom, my mom, my mom. It wasn't until I got older that I said, oh my God, it wasn't my mom going through it. It was the woman in her going through it.
Mhm.
And she was stressed and she was crying. Behind those closed doors that I didn't see, there might have been some tears. Behind the maybe the rent being late, there might have been some tears. Behind anything. And I was telling Izzy before, and it's crazy because I look at her and I say, whatever heartbreak I've suffered, multiply it times four, because we have four
Yeah.
children.
Mhm.
Whatever money issues I've ever had, multiply it times four. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing where, like, right now,
Yeah.
if I have no money and I don't got no food, I'm like, damn, I gotta figure it out. As opposed to, you have your child next to you. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I look, to be honest with you, and I'm gonna say some controversial shit, but it's the truth, man. I've never in my life, right, held it against a woman that was a dancer or even did some illegal shit, right? Guys that do it, I'm a little harder on, believe it or not. I'm a little harder on men that do shit like that, right? That take, in my mind, take the easy route. I'm much harder on men. When I hear a woman stepped off and she had to do something, whatever it was, whether it was hit the streets or whatever, I used to be the type, oh, that's fucking disco. What the fuck? Oh my God. Yo, let me tell you something, man. There's a lyric in a rap song that says it all. That says it all for me. Is Jay-Z and Freeway. And Freeway says, what is it? If my kids, something about to the effect, if his kids don't have food or if their stomach is growling, he'll go into your house and steal dishes out of your kitchen.
Correct. That's what any
Right?
mother would
And I
do.
think,
Any
you know
normal
what?
mom. Yep.
That that's the gangster mentality that women have. A
Right.
lot of men don't have that, believe it or not. You ever had this one or I couldn't? They have to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the main reasons why I enjoy this time. This is like the second
Can
time
I
I've
share
talked this
something
out.
with you? You know, when I
Yeah.
notice how my 9-year-old is more of an adult than a child, and the reason why I feel the way that I could tell him anything, You understand? Like that's the bond we have, and that's my communication with my kids. And obviously, the 7 year old is about to turn 8, so they're like 14 months apart. So they are the same. Like, ¿me entiendes? They're like, the day
Right, right.
that the father came back, it was a couple of months, and the oldest grabbed me in the kitchen and goes, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, Poppy, about anything, whatever you want." And he goes, "Are you sure?" That's all he asked me, and I said, "Kill me." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Are you sure you want daddy back in your life?" And I said to him, I even told the father that conversation, and I said, Why are you asking?" He's like, "Are you sure?" Cause, and then he broke it down to me. He told me, "Oh, cause daddy does this, this, and this, and this, and you're used to this, this, and this." He broke it down to me, and I said, "Listen." And I talked to the father, and I said, "Hey, my kids are analyzing the way that I am, the way that you are coming in again, and what they see that you're not doing for me that I need. You understand that? That's
It's
a growth spot."
crazy how kids. It's like
No, yo me quedé
I know.
fría.
I
I
know
was
for
like,
a fact my daughter is way more advanced in terms of her emotional thinking than I was. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I
yeah,
mean?
me
Like
too.
I'll
Yeah,
never
and then
forget one time. One time she looks at me, right? She's sitting on my lap. She must have been like 9, maybe 8, 9, whatever. She sits on my lap and she claps my cheeks and she goes, "Daddy, I think you need romance." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "I think you need romance." I'm like, "What the fuck do you know about romance?" She goes, "Yeah, because mommy, mommy has somebody and you're always by yourself and you don't have anybody." I really wanted to
baby
say, "Damn,
too.
my problem is I have many, but I'm all right." But the whole point was the point was the point was that she noticed like
They
that a
do. They
person should
notice.
have a partner, but not just
Right.
any partner, a partner that makes you
Right.
happy. You know what I'm saying? A
No,
partner
no.
that's there for you. Like they acknowledge, they understand. It's like we can't we think, right, that we're hiding things from our kids, right?
No.
But it's like I believe in women's intuition. I'm a huge believer in women's intuition, and I believe kids have a very serious level of
Ooh,
intuition
yeah, they
themselves.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Like they meet somebody, and their energy, right, will tell you is like not that they're mean to them, not that they're disrespectful, but more so they just kind of like, eh,
They have their guard
not
up.
my
Yep.
yeah, nah. Because you see when a kid likes somebody or they feel that the energy is good, they're very much outgoing. Hey, they're themselves. They kind of talk. But then there's some people that you're like, nah, and they keep
But
their distance,
I'll
and it's
share this
crazy.
in this situation, right? So in my situation, it wasn't necessarily that. I mean, I'm a very I analyze and I'm a very observant person, and so those are traits that she has. So because this was a first, what came from that initial conversation, that we had, and we had to have it a couple of times of, the understanding, because there was no, she was hard on him. And even now, like it's still, and, it's been 2 years and it's still like, it's
They don't
slow,
want to
very,
share you.
very slow. Right. Right. But at the same time, so when we talked and I was like, we're not moving, we were in the kitchen and I was like, we're not moving until you tell me what is going on. So what came of that was, I'm afraid that you're going to get hurt,
But you told her that. That's the most important thing, and that's what I'm saying.
right?
The communication with your kids is
Right.
people don't
So it
understand
was,
that.
so it was that, and it was, but again, right? So then it came from, you've never seen me with somebody, right? So you wouldn't know what it would be like, right? If I'm hurt by a male figure. But, again, so we're talking shortly after Joe's passing, Randy's passing, which were
Yeah,
two
a
very
whole bunch of
significant
stuff.
people, right? And this was
Right.
a difficult time that we went through. I was hurt, right? So it was probably, I don't want to see you go through something like that, right? And have somebody hurt you. So I think even for her to establish a relationship, with him is difficult, because if you allow yourself, right, and just like human beings, right? Like when we date, you allow yourself, you open yourself, right? And you don't know if there's going to be hurt along the way, or if there's going to be breakup, if it's going to end up working out or not, right? You just have to go through it and experienced it, right? So again, that conversation, but that came, from her, and then it opened up. So it was more of reassuring of
You
I'm the
came,
adult.
came Yasi, you came right after we kind of touched on what you're talking about. How
Mhm.
I told the story about how when I dated women that had children, a lot of times I instead of the bed. But again, I use the bed. What I would do is, let's say me and the lady we're gonna start getting physical, right? I found that a lot of single women, their sons, especially their sons, would sleep in the bed with them, right? And then one day I would come and they'd be like, "Well, you can't sleep in the bed today because Mike is gonna stay," right? And all of a sudden, I'm catching shade from these kids or these young men, and they're wondering why. And it all comes down to something that you did automatically, which is
Mhm.
the conversation. So what I
Right.
used to tell women would be like, all right, listen, if I'm gonna spend the night, make sure that about a week or so before you start to like make him sleep in his own bed. That way,
Right.
by the time I get there, he's not associating not being able to sleep in the bed with me.
With
You
you.
know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's two different
Yeah.
things. I was already not allowed to sleep. And I think that you did it in your own way where you said, I don't want her, not only the fact that she was well aware about you getting hurt, but you also had the conversation because you didn't want her to associate the fact that you were now going to be spending a little time outside the house or with somebody and away from her with the fact that, oh, what now he's here, now I'm not good enough, or now
Right.
I'm not enough. Before, when he wasn't around, I was the queen, I was always with
Mhm.
you. Now
Mhm.
but when you had that conversation and you
My
spoke to her,
scenario was
you were
my
able to
scenario
kind
was
of
a little bit.
It's the reassurance also
Yeah.
because
your position is still there.
reassured that no matter what, right? And I speak from only for me, right? In my situation, I was like, no matter what, nobody's going to take your first place,
You need to make sure that's
like
clear.
your first
Yep.
place. So there is no,
But they
I mean,
might
there's
change it.
emergencies, right? There's emergencies that happen, but there's never going to be, I choose this person over you. And again, but again, with reason, right? Like not something just like kind of neglectful or something like that, right? But it was that, and that was constant. I had to say it at least a couple of times because again, I was like, you, and again, this is not something for you to understand right now, but over time
One day.
you will understand it. And I'm an adult, right? So you should know also that I said, I haven't brought men in here. You haven't met. I said, there's people that do that, right? And I said, and maybe then this would have been easier had I been doing that, right? Like all along, right? But then how would you have looked at me if that's the type of person that I was, right?
Correct.
Constantly
Yep.
going out, constantly like every weekend going to clubs and drinking
You made her
and
aware.
bringing
That's
that.
smart. Yeah, you gotta let her know,
No,
like,
but
hey,
I
you
mean,
got a good
don't
one.
get me wrong.
You got a
Like
good
Right.
one.
my situation was a little
Right,
different
right,
because
right.
my kids they never like when I broke up with the dad. Like I said, they were too young, so I had no choice but to be all that roles that I told you I had to be. So I
Right.
didn't have a chance to date. So I had friends, guy friends. I always had guy friends my whole life. So you're gonna burn yourself. Sorry. So then I had guy friends. So I had especially two guy friends, or three actually, that would come, but there was one specific that was interested in me, right? And we have history, you know what I mean? So my kids, they were like, no, we ain't having it. What time is it leaving? Like they were always around us. Like that's that security of my boys.
Be
Like
territorial,
saying, you're
yeah.
taking care of mommy, she's
Yeah.
ours. You ain't sharing it. Like
Right.
that's just that their mentality. So they didn't understand that. So I would be like, yo, you gotta go, the kids, I gotta put them to sleep. And he would leave, very respectful. So they don't know what it's like for me to date anybody other than their father.
Right.
You understand? So when the father came in, they still didn't understand it. They were like, I don't give a fuck if you're my father. No, like you weren't here. Where were you?
Nobody gets that place. I'm the king.
You really, you know what? And it's funny because you have to like, and in a sense, right? Like, so you have to put your foot down, right? Too, like, and to really like, put it out there, like the reminder of like, again, right? Like, so I'm the adult, right? So I'm like, this is really where it got to. I was like, listen, this is what you're going to end up doing, right? When you become a teenager and you get to high school, this is what it's going to be like. And I'm going to let you know something, right? I said, you continue to make this hard for me. It's all good. And I said, but just remember that at the end of the day, when you start to, or when you want to go out, I got the last say. So let's play this right from now so we could see how things are moving forward.
Yeah, you have to be blunt with them like that. You
Yeah,
have to,
yeah,
because you
yeah,
know what?
yeah,
There is no in between on that. And when you're more like honest with them, they'll understand you more and they'll be
right.
on your level. You
Yeah,
understand?
yeah.
And it's like I told him when
We're,
the
we're
father came
coming up
back,
on
I was like,
55
huh?
minutes.
Oh,
No,
okay.
just we're coming up on 55. About 5 minutes left to wrap it up. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, that was it. Like
No,
just
make your point. Go
communication
ahead.
with your kids so that you could
Well,
have a life and be a woman as
here,
well as a motherhood. That's what I think.
here's a conversation I just had with my 14-year-old a couple of weeks ago when I was up in Jersey. Um, I, right, but I'm a man, so it's different. I can't take the approach women take. I was always very careful about who I introduced my daughter to. That's why she thought, I was by myself all the time. So she was, I kind of prepped her in advance. Hey, listen, I'm not going up by myself. I'm going up with somebody. Just so you know, you're gonna meet somebody. And she was like, okay, cool. She's 14. She's not a kid, not a baby anymore. She
Right.
understands that needs to be
She's a
happy.
big girl.
So I get up there, and at first I found myself projecting an energy on her.
Mm.
Like I was kind of tippy toeing and kind of being very like, oh, but oh, hoping that she likes her. Maybe you like her, and I had to step back and be like, be mindful of the energy that I'm projecting onto my own daughter. And I said to myself, no, I know the conversation I'm gonna have. I spoke to my daughter. I'm like, yeah, this is this person. Da 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 da. I like her. I like her a lot. And I didn't say the words exactly like this, but what I was trying to tell her was, at this age, it doesn't really matter if you like her or not. Okay?
Right.
Just understand this. You are my princess. She will be my queen. Okay? And that's the position you have to stay in. Okay? You're my
Right.
princess. She will be my queen. And I gave you that title. That's the title I've always given you. I've never treated you like my queen. You've always been my princess, and that's never going to change. And she kind of looked at me like, me and her, we get along super well. We're practically the same person. And we're talking, and she's just like, no, I get it. She was real cool about it. She looked at me like, no, I get it. And it just so happened that she loved her. She was like, oh my God, she's hilarious. She's super cool. So it kind of made my life a little, even though I had put that out there, it still kind of put me at ease and was like, all right, cool. It actually was like that cherry on top, that bonus. But you do get to a certain age where you're like, Ma, you're about to get, in a couple of years, you're going to get married, have children.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
She's daddy's little girl. She needs that communication with you. And I'm telling you that from being daddy's little girl. I was my dad's everything, And that's what I'm saying. Like, there was never if my father would have left my mom, there was never going to be a good enough girl for him. It was just because I was daddy's little girl.
I just think at the end of the day, it does. It just comes down to communicating it. And obviously in an age appropriate, manner. Moving forward from there and just generally having an understanding. I think, like for myself too, I play both roles, and I've always played both roles, and I probably will always play both roles.
I know what you mean.
But again, that's the understanding. So, as they get older, they understand even the responsibility of having
they understand what you teach them.
But even right. But like even the everything that's on your plate, so that this way, like caring for your parents, holding down work, paying bills, making sure the utilities are on, making sure that you have a car, all of those things. Like, and I always tell my daughter, so these aren't things that you can't take them for granted, right? Because any given day,
it could be taken away from you.
It can be gone. So, so I said, when you find a good person, and I said, and again, same thing, Mike, I am an adult. This is what I'm doing, right? And whether you like it or not, you're just going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to accept it over time. If it ends, it ends. That's something I deal with, and that's how it is.
Yep.
The dime of the day for today, right? Based off of this conversation, what I'm going to take away, and I hope the listeners took away from today, is not permission, but definitely a conversation. You're not asking, as an adult, you don't ask for permission, but you definitely have the conversation. You include the kids in the conversation. Yes. So again, not permission, but a conversation. That's the dime of the day. Before we close out, I just want to drop the off real quick. Today's episode is brought to you by Fox City Beard. Fox City Beard. Again, I'm on a little hair growth journey, It hasn't been that easy. I don't grow hair like most guys do, with the full beard or whatever. But let me tell you something, the texture, it comes highly recommended from me. Like I said, I decided to narrow down the people that I was working with to people that I actually believe in their product. Okay. Right. So I had been a little bit all over the place, just offering people, hey, you need help, whatever. And then I narrowed it down. And now I'm dealing with two companies that I absolutely adore. One is Fox City Beard. If you got a man that has hair growth, listen, there's a lot of bacteria that grows on these beards when people eat. There's a lot of funny smells that come off here. There's beard oils, shave balm, all kinds of things that you could use. That's foxcitybeard.com. If you dropping dimes under the promo code, you will get 50% off on purchases over $50. When you see the inventory, I promise you that $50 can go fast. And then the second part is Buna Brother Import. Buna Brother Import is Ethiopian coffee. Let me tell you something. I'm a coffee drinker. I love it. I absolutely adore my coffee. But there's levels to this shit. Okay? You have your coffee, you have your Colombian, you got all this Turkish coffee. I love it all. Trust me, I'm a big coffee guy. But there's levels to this shit. And do yourself a favor. You can go get the Arabica or the whole bean. It's over on Buna Brother Import.
Put it up again.
Oh, sorry. Let me see if I can get it a little bit. I'm going to put the link down below for you guys. Okay. I'll put the link down below. Yeah. It's Buna Imports. Buna Imports, premium Ethiopian coffee. Buna Brothers on Instagram. But again, these guys have really had my back as far as what's going on. And just to close it out, before I let you guys start, I just want to hit on the thing. My book is in editing right now. It's literally, going through the editing process. I'm very nervous. It's never been so insecure in my life. I'm the type of person that I can get in front of 1,000 people and do a speech. Don't break a sweat, right? But having somebody handing over my writing to somebody and leave him, it's like I'm naked. I feel naked. It's like, if she hates it, I don't know if I can recover. But luckily, I got a full circle. I got people around me that are really pumping it up and really telling me all along the way that I've had, that I got something good going. So Shallow River, the Deep Ocean, a man's guide to understanding his woman by first understanding himself. It's really a deep dive looking at yourself to really understand. It's like you picture the relationship that you want, and then you go and you make the changes within yourself to achieve that. You go, you get treated good, you want to get treated great. You have good sex, you want the fantasy. All that is in there. Hopefully people could benefit from that book. Anything else you guys got going on? How's everything going? How you holding up with the weather up there?
It's all right. It's I always say decent. People are like, decent's when it's 60. And I'm like, look, it's not snowing, it's not storming, it's decent. The sun comes out. But yeah.
I'd rather be in Florida, but I'm just
island living is good. But yeah.
Hey girls, listen, man. I look forward to doing this again. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for having my back. Coming through here. And I know, again, this is one of those examples where, today we have some women that are mothers that are super busy. They couldn't log on. They just couldn't. This is something they want to do. They had let me know, hey, I want to be on here, but I got my priorities. You know what I mean? So even in that, they're the example of what we were talking about. So I want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. And we're about to log off. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and we are